Hi guys, so it's David again here, and this is really my first video. Before I start, I'd like to apologise for the sounds that you might be able to hear outside. Where I'm like I've said in the previous video, I'm in Bangkok in Thailand, and there's an airport pretty close by to where I'm staying. So apologies for that, and there's also some construction work happening. Just quite close to here as well, so apologies for that as well. So anyway, yeah, so basically this is sort of my real first video really, and today I sort of wanted to talk a little bit about depression, as it's something that I've personally suffered, and I think that is the right word to use, suffered with for a good, probably a good to 10 to 15 years. Depression has been a part of my life for quite a long time. And it's been a real challenge to sort of get to this point where I'm at now. I wouldn't say that I'm not depressed now. Still have days where I'm very much depressed. Mostly in the mornings now for some reason. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's because I'm going to sleep too late or my diet or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, but over the last 15 years, it has been pretty serious, on and off. It sort of got pretty serious last year. In fact, I would probably say that it was at its worst from the late part of 2017 going through 2018. And you probably think, oh, why am I telling you all of this? What's the point? There's many videos on depression and stuff like that. Well, yes, there is, and you're more than happy to go and check those out if you wish, and that's fine. The reason I'm telling you this is because one, it's sort of therapeutic for myself to tell you, and it's because I'm not really going to smooth over certain details like you tend to get in other videos. I don't tend to go into depth about certain things, so that's kind of what I want to do here. So depression is basically, well, apparently it's an imbalance of chemicals, amongst other things. Of course, it's quite a complicated thing to actually understand, and there goes the plane. So but yeah, it's basically an imbalance of, I believe it's serotonin or dopamine, or maybe both of them. This can be caused from stresses in life. This can be caused via genetic problems or growth issues. Probably, I think it could also be to do with diet growing up, a lack of exercise and things like that. And I'm going to come on to that in a few minutes. So yeah, depression has been a part of my life for, I think, about 15 years. Certainly for 12 to 13 of them. But it started to get pretty bad over the last year and a half to 2 years. I just sort of went downhill very, very rapidly. I've been quite suicidal on and off over the last 7 or 8 years. There's been a couple of times where I've mostly just thought about taking my own life. There's been about 2 or 3 attempts to actually end my life. One of them was pretty severe, and actually one of them was actually just last year. Depression doesn't always have to be, or it doesn't always have to have negative connotations to it. It doesn't always have to be, and this is what I don't like about, especially in England where I come from, is the stigma around mental health, especially in the workplace, where it's not really something you talk about. It's a sort of something that you just sort of get on with, and you don't really share things like that in England too often with people, especially not with other men. There's a lot of stigma around men, sort of the whole ego masculine type, sort of alpha male type thing that goes on with a lot of guys over there. And it happens a lot in America, probably more so in America. Um, and I think that doesn't help as well as the stigma surrounded with mental health, especially with depression and anxiety. As it sort of, in some ways, it's not really seen as a sort of illness. It's sort of seen as a, oh, he's just having a bad day. It's just moody. He's just down in the dumps or something, for an hour or a couple of days or something. But over a prolonged period of time, you do start to notice something in yourself, and you do eventually have to accept that you perhaps you do actually have something that needs to be dealt with. I don't want to say something wrong with you, because I don't like that, the way that comes across, that you're different, you're strange, you're broken or something like this, because it's not really the case. That probably a lot of people actually have depression, but I think some people deal with it better than others, and that might be to do with sometimes it might just be as simple as they're just too busy, and they don't really have time to sort of ponder too much about on negativity and things like that surround depression. So perhaps in some ways that's part of the process of getting better or even heal, is to keep yourself busy. And just one of the things that I found last year that was quite prominent in my thoughts was a real sense of longing for the past, a real sense of guilt in some ways, I suppose, and just negative emotions, negative thoughts, a lot of negative memories coming back. Depression is something it's understood, but it's not really fully understood. And just because something works for one individual doesn't mean it's going to work for another. So, for example, if a sport is something that you do helps you to fight, or to at least to manage depression, that's great. If that's something that works for you, then that's good. But unfortunately, that people are different, and how people deal with things is an individual thing. It's, for some it might be a sport, for some it might be to cut out things from the diet, perhaps sugar, carbs, or something. For other people it might be types of music, perhaps it might be just changing the schedule, or just keeping yourself busy so you don't have time to let the negativity sort of overcome you and sort of overwhelm you, I guess. So on and off, I've had depression for about 15 years, as I've said a few times. But last year it was very bad, and it took me going back to England to really fully understand just how bad my depression had gotten. It was sort of, it come in bouts over the last 10-15 years. It come in stages. It come and go. It'd come and go, and then all of a sudden it'd come in stronger waves. But it was last year really that it was very much like a tsunami. It was quite destructive. It was quite. I really did feel like taking my own life last year. It was very, very bad. And it was going back to England really, that through circumstances I don't really wish to talk about, but some pretty serious circumstances led to me having to go back to the UK, which actually in the end turned out to be rather positive, because I had the chance to see my family again after a couple of years of being away from them. A chance to sort of just reconnect with my own. I don't want to say my own people, but my own culture, something that's familiar to me, that I understand, and the language, the humour, and it's something that you can forget after a while. And this is something I'm going to talk about in a second. But so that experience of a couple of months in England was actually a rather refreshing experience in some ways. In other ways, it was actually worse than what was going on here in Thailand, where I'd been for a couple of years without any real change. And so that I went back to the UK for a couple of months, and I've just come back I just came back last month. It's interesting how you take on a different angle after all of that time. You know, it's no matter how long you stay somewhere. When you come back, you always, for the first couple of weeks at least, you always get a new insight into things, and it's interesting how being away from somewhere and coming, even, well, just being away from somewhere and then pondering on it and thinking about it and analysing it from a different country or a different place is rejuvenating. And also when you come back to that familiar place, or what you thought was familiar, or a place that you thought that you knew, is quite interesting. And probably that's going to be a series of videos in and of itself, so I won't go too much into all that. But yeah, depression and anxiety are quite closely interlinked, if not actually, if not linked together completely, really. The thing with depression is, really, one of the major causes of depression is stress. And stress can start to cause problems with anxiety, and then anxiety starts to act like a magnet for depression, really. And sometimes it can be sort of different combinations of those kind of things. And so what had happened with me over the years is a lot of unresolved issues and things like problems from childhood, problems from my teens and my early adulthood, things that I hadn't talked about, I hadn't addressed, I didn't really want to address. And also, it's not even just so much as talking about it, it's the ability to feel the emotions necessary to deal with those things, because it's not enough to just talk about some of the things that might be causing you to have depression or to preventing you from getting out of it. You have to be able, and that's one of the things that CBT helped me with, at least partially helped with, was the knowledge of accepting that you have to be emotionally, spiritually in some ways, and psychologically ready to address your emotions. The emotional, it's a skill, I guess. It takes time, but it also, you have to be brave and you have to be ready for change. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And part of that process of being ready for change is to feel the real raw emotions that lie underneath. And I think a lot of that is, certainly for me, one of the major problems of the build-up of depression last year was a build-up of thoughts and of stress and emotions that I hadn't really dealt with, and some things I hadn't even really thought about that was there, that was going on, that I needed to hear from a professional, really. So I went through some CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, last year for a couple of months, which did help in some regards, because it was nice to sit down with someone that wasn't judgmental. Well, I wouldn't say completely non-judgmental. I mean, there was, to some extent, he was, I won't obviously mention his name. He was judgmental to a certain degree, because he has to be. Of course, he's human. But just someone that was sort of a clean slate, I guess. Sort of just someone that was just willing to listen without being too critical and sort of analysing every little word that I said or every little thing that I said into something that he thought it might represent, but rather just sitting down and just being willing to listen. And sometimes that is part of the healing process. Actually, it's just having not so much just having a person. It's having, because I did change actually the counsellors, because the first two people I didn't really feel like it was the right people for me. So if I was to give advice about CBT, I would say that you need to have the right person for you, and I think that you will. I think you will eventually. You'll know whether that person is right for you. It's just you need to find somebody that works well with your personality, really. So eventually, I found somebody that I personally felt that was the right person. Excuse the banging, the plane going by, as I mentioned at the start of the video. There's not really much I can do about that sound, I'm afraid. So yeah, so I went to CBT. I did that. I also got some medication as well. I actually stopped taking that eventually. It wasn't really working out. There was a lot of side effects that I just wasn't willing to tolerate. For me, I just didn't want to go down the medication route for a number of reasons. One was addiction. Two, I actually felt like it wasn't really working for me. Just overall, just wasn't really working out. So I decided to stop doing that. But what I have started to do is to try and is to cut out a lot of things that contain a lot of sugar, a lot of salt. I've tried to cut down on carbs, and I've also tried to exercise a lot more, which is helping a little bit. But also traveling does help as well to a certain level. But you have to be in the right place. I think you have to be somewhere that's comfortable, that's familiar, but not overly so, because once something becomes too familiar, too comfortable, and this is also the same with relationships, they start to become monotonous, they start to become boring, they start to become predictable. And I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a creative person. Excuse me. But I write poetry. I sometimes like to play the piano, just really improvise, really. I like to write like quotes and things, just things that come into my head. I quite like philosophy. I'm interested in psychology. I like to study a little bit here and there. And sometimes I just like to go out. I just like to get out and just walk and just have time to myself. And so I guess what this video is getting at eventually is advice. And my advice to people that are suffering with depression, whether it's mild, moderate, because I wouldn't say that I've got severe depression. It's probably more towards the moderate bracket, I guess. Is number one is to accept that you have something, but don't label yourself in a negative way. Label yourself as having something that has both negative and positive influences. Don't label yourself as damaged goods, unless of course it's very severe, and that's a different thing for another time. My depression was, I said, borderline severe last year, that's for sure, but most of my life has been probably moderate, really. Certainly over the last 5 years it's been fairly moderate. So yeah, number one is accept that there is something that you have to look into, you have to change, and just come to terms with that. That will help you a lot, is to stop fighting it off, to stop pretending that there's nothing, that there isn't something going on. Let's put it that way. Number two is tell your family, tell the people that are closest to you, that you can trust and who believe you and who are willing to support you, because there's no point telling people that you at work, unless of course it's your boss and you feel it's necessary to inform them, because there might be a point where you can't carry that position out anymore, or it's just affecting your ability to be effective at work. But I would say tell the people closest to you, people that perhaps might have had some similar issues, or maybe you think they might have the same thing. Maybe worth having a conversation. Perhaps might be something between the two of you that might be able to help each other, even just by being able to lean on each other's shoulders. Number three is to avoid yourself from um, noise, really, and things that irritate you as much as you possibly can. Is to try and avoid stresses, unnecessary stresses. Avoid things that, as best as you can, avoid things that you know that make you unhappy, that make you depressed, or just give you anxiety. Um, Step 4, or point 4, is write down your thoughts. That's something that I was doing last year, and I've started to do again this year as well. Is to start writing down your thoughts, your depressed thoughts. Write everything down. So write a sort of depression diary, as it were. Both your positive thoughts or your emotions or what you did that day, and your negative ones as well. And the last one I would say is probably to exercise. Now, there isn't really a cure as such for depression yet, as far as I'm aware, but I could be wrong about that. But there is some new medications on the market. There is new things being tested and trialed. So maybe in the near future there might actually be some sort of so-called cure. Well, maybe it will work for some people, perhaps. So I would try to do is to probably just is to get out there and exercise works for some people. So I don't. Exercise is good and it's useful, but it doesn't work for everybody. And with exercise, it can become. It is challenging at times. It's a difficult thing to keep up. But if you can keep it up, that might help. That may go a fair way to helping you at least balance on some days your mind. I guess any other things I'd like to say, probably just find some. If you're having problems with sleeping, for example, maybe try to find some kind of soothing ambient type music. Or something I've been doing this year, for example, is listen to a lot of types of white noise type stuff on YouTube. I really recommend Randall's Relaxation. He's one of the best people on YouTube at the moment doing white noise stuff, like fan noises, a mixture of like fans and different just types of things, mixtures of like sort of white noise that are really relaxing and just kind of help you to sort of slowly nod off, get a good night's sleep. And the last thing is actually sleep, really. You'd be surprised at just how much a good night's sleep can help you. I wasn't sleeping very well. I haven't been sleeping very well on and off for probably about 6 to 7 years. It's been getting a little bit better the last couple of weeks, probably because I'm back in town now and I'm more active than I was, and so I'm just trying to cut things out of my diet as well as best as I can here and there. Not completely, just a little bit here and there. But yeah, getting a good 7-8 hours sleep, if that's what you can do, if that's what you normally do, or if that's what you think works for you, then that's what that's what I would recommend you do as well. And finally, just drink lots of water. Water is an invaluable source. It really is. There's a lot of times that you will feel hungry, but actually it's just your brain tricking you. It's actually that you're just dehydrated. You just need to drink some water. And also water will help. Sometimes water can help with depression as well. So yeah, make sure you're sleeping well, you're drinking lots of water. I mean, look, this is just my advice. Whatever works for you, works for you. Maybe some of the things I've mentioned today will help. If not, then just write some things down, what you think that might work for you, and try them out. And if they don't work, then they don't work. Then try some other stuff, or maybe come back to this channel in another week or two and might have another video of ideas to help with depression, not the cure, but the management of depression. So that's it really. That's all I really wanted to talk about today. Depression #1, I guess, will probably be the title of this video or something like that. So thank you for watching the video. Thank you for sticking through it, and sorry that I've mumbled my way through the whole thing, and there's been a lot of noise here and there, but thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. See you.